Hello and welcome back, math scholars. All right, eighth graders, today we are going to start talking about transformations. That was a SpongeBob reference. Okay, today specifically we're going to talk about translation. So those are two different words. There's transformations and translations. Okay, our focus is on translations. So as we get started here, if we were in person, I would ask you, what do you notice about the following figures? Okay, how would you describe their movements? What do they all have in common? So take a quick moment here. Take a look at these different translations. There's this shape here, the original shape. We saw these yesterday with our Desmos activity. How is this shape moving? How is this shape moving rather? And this is also an example of a translation. What do they all have in common? Start thinking of a word or two that you could use to describe how they are moving. Here's some more examples. I got four on the same screen. Think of checkers or chess. With this guy in the hat, what is he doing? How would you describe his movement? What about this Cubs player down here that is going to home base? And lastly, we have a picture of a blue and red triangle. How could you describe their movements? Okay, so that's what we're going to be focusing our attention today. We're going to describe the properties of translations. What do we see? How do we see them move? And their effect on something called congruence. Okay, so for you guys today, after you're done, I'm talking only to my period 3 and 5 students. This is part one of videos. There will be another one after this, and then your exit slip is to just do that foldable in class. Period one, you're going to be doing a completely different foldable and a completely different assignment. Okay, just an FYI. All right, so some key vocabulary rather before we move on. The first is transformation. Okay, you should be annoyed with that by now. Okay. So this is just a change in position, the size or shape of a figure on a graph. Okay, basically just a change. Okay, when we have the before image, we're going to refer to that as the pre-image. That's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, and then there's the image. This is the ending figure. Okay, so sometimes we confuse those two. But here in our illustration, we have the before, the pre-image, what it was before, and then we have the after the image. So think of it like this. Here's me. I'm the pre-image. And if I go to take a selfie, okay, that is my image. So whatever I take a picture of, that's going to be my image. Okay. But whatever I take the picture of, that was my pre-image. Okay. So going back here, one thing I do want to make certain that you guys understand. In addition, when you're going to see in your notes later, you'll see a bunch of shapes, but they're not going to tell you this is the pre-image and this is the image. So here's how you tell the difference. Notice how, for instance, there's letters A, B, C, and that's it. That's your pre-image. And then on the image, there's these little tick marks. They're called prime symbols. So that's how you know the difference. If they have the little tick marks, that's the second image, or what we call the image. Okay? Think of Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime is a transformer. That's where he got his name from. Okay, so someone in the transformer industry was a nerd. They must have liked their math class. And just think Optimus Prime. Prime is a transformation. Okay, it's the after image, after he transforms. Now, translation. This is our big vocabulary word of the day. If you didn't quite guess it earlier, did you say the word slide? All those figures that I showed you at the beginning of this presentation, they were all sliding in some way, either up or down or left or right, but they slid in some way. Okay, just like you see in this example here, I have my pre-image and my image. They are sliding or gliding. That's one way to think of it. Okay. I'd like you to kind of imagine old school video games. Like my favorite, Super Mario Brothers. It's the only game I can play. So old school video games, for the most part, they only allowed you to interact with like a two-dimensional surface. You could only go up, down, left, or right. You couldn't go forward or backwards, okay? And usually you couldn't spin around, okay? It's just up, down, left, right. That is essentially a transformation. Excuse me, a translation. Okay, we're not going to take our break just yet, but if you have some extra time at the end, I'm going to upload a YouTube video that shows a real life example of a translation, and it will be the Ohio State Marching Band. It's actually a pretty cool video. I would watch it to the end. They do some pretty cool tricks in the video. It's a translation video. Okay, so here's a couple examples I have for you. It's not that bad, okay? So here's my pre-image. I have a rectangle A, B, C, D, okay? Pre-image, my before. Here, I decide to perform a translation, okay? And it looks like as I translate it, oops, my first question is, how is the orientation of that rectangle? So orientation is basically the way an object points. So here I am, my orientation, I'm facing forward. If I wanted to change my orientation, I could turn and face this way. I just cracked my back. Don't get old, kids. Again, I can turn and change my orientation, facing back. Okay, so after this translation, after this slide, did I turn it at all? Did I turn or twist that rectangle at all, or did it maintain its orientation? Well, it maintained its orientation. If here's my rectangle and I just slid it down, I didn't turn it or twist it in any way. It just slid. So it's still facing the same way. Its orientation remains the same. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Okay. What about the lengths of each? So if I take a look at the lengths of A and B rather, notice how it has 4 units across and BC has 3 units down. Or are they the same or are they different? Let's see. A prime B prime is also 4 units across, and B prime C prime is also 3 units down. Are they the same or are they different? Okay, the lengths remain the same as well. For instance, if I took this card and I just slid it across my screen in any way, it doesn't just magically grow or get smaller. The size remains the same. Okay, so that's a key feature of a translation. They don't grow. They stay the same size. Okay. All right. What about the angles? So inside these rectangles, each corner has a degree of 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. Okay. If I slide it around as I've done here, again, the angles did not change. The shape is still a rectangle. My bad. The shape is still a rectangle. The angles themselves do not change or are not affected by me sliding this around. Okay, so that's another key feature. The angles are the same. Okay, and lastly here, what about those parallel lines? So in this case here, I'll go to my screen. A and B are parallel or across from DC. A prime, B prime are still parallel to D prime and C prime. So again, my top and bottom are still parallel. My left and right are still parallel. Nothing changes, okay? And what about the shape? This rectangle, did it remain a rectangle or did it turn into a star? No, it's the same, okay? Same thing. I'm just simply gliding this around my screen. I'm not changing the size of it. I'm not changing the orientation. I'm not changing the angles. Everything else remains the same. Okay, so those are the big takeaways from today. Okay, what that's called is congruent. Okay, so what we just discovered is that shapes that translate, they are congruent, meaning they have the same size, they have the same shape, they have the same angles. Okay, the only thing is their position changed or slid around in some way. Okay, so that's a very, very big Math 8 vocabulary word, congruent. It just means the same. Cool. Okay, so what are we going to do now? So before we're done here, I'm going to have you watch one more quick video of us interacting with our notes. And then you are pretty much done for the day after you do those foldable notes. If you would like to and you have some time at the end, you can watch the YouTube video that I will be posting about that marching band. All right, I'll see you guys in just a moment. Take care.